Trucking along. Here we go. All right.
Yeah, it's come to this.
We should do it. Yeah.
That's what I say. It's come to this, Richard. You were like, maybe at episode 500, he's going to kick me off the show. No, it's going to be the next episode after this one.
It's today the day.
We'll do this one.
You're finally going to set me free.
Yeah.
I mean,
wait,
that
what?
You finally.
I don't want to leave.
I don't want to go.
You know, if I ever win the lottery, what I would do, just to be a jerk, I'd hide it and be like, I kind of want to do the show with somebody else. And you'd be like, oh, okay. And then buy this big TV ad on Disney Plus. And you'd be sitting there and be like, Language of Bromance. You'd be like, wait, what?
Motherfucker.
I'd show up in some super nice car. He'd be like, you've been holding out. I'd be like, no, I just won the lottery. He'd be like, whew. I was going to say. So I can still do the show, right? Yeah, of course.
Can I get in your car? Oh, God, no.
Yeah.
I just vacuumed.
This is kind of a future thing because you mentioned getting in my car. So I think for the end of the year bro huddle, I'm going to pull out our
You're going to buy me a car?
No, not going to buy you a car. I'm going to pull out our New Year's resolutions and see how well we've been following them. So this is kind of like your mid-year checkup on it to see if you're sticking with what you had.
Oh, man.
Yeah. So you better re-listen and be like, man, there's one specific I really want to make sure you do.
Yeah.
We're coming up on it.
I know. It's going to be like my mother.
Mm-hmm.
Ugh.
She loves you more, but I'm a close second.
Man. I will say this: don't push too hard, because you push too hard.
Oh yeah, I know.
And then I'll swing the other way.
I got that when I just kiddingly tried to go for your cigarettes, and you're like, "Don't." I was like, "Ooh, yeah, I'm not doing that." There was some anger in those words.
That's right. Don't you forget it.
All right. Let's do a draft.
This draft kind of made me sad. I'm just kidding. It didn't make me sad at all. I can't wait to talk to any of these people. Ray, and here we go. 1, 2, 3. Let's do a show.
Ladies and gentlemen, presenting the nerdiest competition ever created by the Language of Bromance team. In this corner, obsessed with Star Wars and anything with swords, Richard! And in this corner, obsessed with the Ninja Turtles and scared of anything from the ocean, Shawn! In association with the LOB Army. Tonight's competition is a Language of Bromance Draft.
What's up, everybody? I'm Richard.
And I'm Shawn.
And we're speaking the language of bromance.
Oh, it's the language of newmance.
Yeah.
A new bromance.
Bromance no more. We have decided to end it.
Yep. All over
done.
with.
I'm done with you. I'm done with this. Done with Twitter.
Yeah. And everybody. So what we're doing, Richard, is we're going to do a replace a bro draft. So this is the draft.
That's right.
This is almost like the, what's it called? Where
I'm taking half of the name. I'm going to take language of, and you can have bromance.
Okay. I'd be good with that.
No, I'll take language O, and then you can have the F.
That's fine. I
And
dropped
then
the F.
bromance.
Like, I feel like I have more room than if you've got language O. Like, you can't really do anything with that. Or if you have language of, it's like language of English.
No. See, it's perfect for me because, like, my last name starts with an MC, so I could be like language O the Irish.
But this
What
draft,
do you have? You have an F. What are you gonna do with that F?
I just drop it.
It's silent.
But this is kind of like our hall pass type thing. It's like, if you get the chance to pod with these guys, I can't get mad.
Ooh. Okay.
Yeah. So maybe we should call it hall pass bromance. But this would be like, I always think like, Richard, at some point, I'm going to die before you because that's just what's going to happen. And I need you.
You really think so?
Probably. I mean, odds are that's what's going to happen.
I think statistically, I'm much more likely to croak first.
I mean, statistically, but like when you're thinking like universal, like powers that be.
Universe can't be this, can't be too good.
But yeah, so like when I die before you, you got to figure out who you're going to continue the show with. And this is the list you're just going to have to go back to and find them. And they're going to have to podcast
this is a
with
list
you.
of people that will never return any of my calls.
Yep, that's right. But the problem is that I have some people
Who
on
are
here.
you? Language of
My
what?
friend just died.
That's a good point. I could use that to try and like guilt people.
Oh, I would.
So at least I've got like 7. I've got 7 shows that I can get just on sheer guilt.
That's right. Like, that's okay. We don't need to honor his memory. He was just a wonderful man. How'd he die? He didn't have a spotter. Spotter for what? You know.
Oh.
Erotic
Is he married?
asphyxiation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what makes it all the more tragic.
Yeah. You know who found him?
You would think she would help.
You know who found him? The cat. You know what cats do?
They eat the eyes.
Yeah, it was a
Eyes
horrific
first.
scene. But the problem is he was butt naked, so they didn't start there. Where'd they start? You don't want to know.
Oh, no. Soft tissue.
Oh, they ate his penis. Oh, well, not at first. Wait, what'd they eat? Yeah, think about it.
I don't wanna.
All right, but this is our Replace It Bro, and they're going to listen to this and be like, I ain't going on that show. That's what I imagine that, like, the first person.
Not the dead one, but
you bring that first person on, you're like, you're not as funny as my friend talking about horrific masturbatory deaths. But yeah, the idea is this is who's going to replace one of us. I'm ready to go if you are. So if you don't know what our drafts are, they're NFL style, where we flip-flop picks back and forth. It's 7 rounds. We flipped a penny back in the day, so he goes first. And so on odd drafts, I get the first pick. Even drafts, Richard gets the first pick. And this is an odd draft, so I get the first pick.
I'm curious how your list is going to go. I have a relatively short list because I think a majority of these people would not enter your mind at all. I have maybe 2 names that you would think of.
Okay. Well, my first one, it's somebody that has been on our show multiple times. And if you ask me, I feel like if we're talking about like parts of our shows, like part of our like DNA, I would say he's got to be very, very closely tied to it. I would consider him the third bro. Like, you know, like the Three Stooges.
Oh, wow.
The Three Stooges had the fourth stooge, Shemp, that nobody talked about. Like that's like there's 2 bros.
No, see, that's the thing is people would talk. There's Curly, of course, and then Shemp. People know Shemp, but everybody forgets Joe.
Wait, there's 5.
See?
There's 5.
There was Joe. Everybody forgets Joe
Because it was Larry, Curly, and Moe. So
there was
Three
Mo,
Stooges.
Larry, Curly, but then there was also Mo, Larry, Shemp, and then at one point it was Mo, Larry, and Joe.
Oh, well, this would be the Shemp. He's the guy that people know about, but they may not think about all the time. So
okay.
If that makes sense, because I didn't know about
How do you
Joe.
think he'll feel about being called Shemp?
Well, in my computer class, in college, my professor was a big Three Stooges fan. So we had 4 computers in there, and one was named Shemp. That's the only reason I know that existed.
No, okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
but he's on every year for our Bro Huddle episode. He brought us onto a podcast network. Him and I did a podcast for a little bit, It is one King of the North, John. I don't know if you want to say his last name. We'll just call him King of the North, John.
Okay. I just realized that now you're gonna, like, you say a name and I say a name, and then we have to debate on whether or not the other one approves.
Ooh, that's a good point. If we do the hall pass style, yeah.
So now I gotta come up with a determination of whether or not I approve. I approve this name.
Yeah, I think we talked about it at one point. It's like if one of us does kick the bucket, he's going to have to step up and step into the show because we got to keep it going. But the reason I picked John is because he listens to every single show. Right, John? Right? Listen to every single show? Testing you here. Testing you.
Yeah. We'll expect your DM in short order, sir.
But no, I always love like his improv style. Like, you know, when we did the wrestling thing, we improv back and forth. When he's on for Bro Huddle or any other episode, I just enjoy the back and forth. Like, he fits our like style of humor, and he always just kind of fits in perfectly. And like that's where I feel like, you know, when you talk about like long running like TV shows or stuff like that, whenever like a long running character falls off and they kind of like put in another one that's basically kind of the same, it almost becomes very seamless. And you're like, oh, like, yeah, it's a different person, but okay, it works. I feel like that would be John with this. Like by episode, like let's say, you know, we stopped doing the show, me and you, on episode 500. By episode 520, 530, it would feel normal having him in there.
Yeah, I agree. I would agree with that. So yeah, I would say, if I think about it, yes, I overall would approve of this pick. Question: would the format of the show change at all?
I don't think so. Just because he kind of fits in pretty well. He can talk about anything, similar to like what we do.
Sure.
You know, there might be more wrestling talk I could see.
Probably. I can almost guarantee that.
Yeah. And he's one person too I could see like we'd probably like you and I kind of like flow like what day works, but he'd be somebody I think you could keep a weekly recording going with. So like you wouldn't have to worry about falling in to like missing stuff. Cause that's the other thing I care about is like I want somebody who can consistently keep the show going. But yeah, it'd be my first round pick would be John.
All right. Well, my pick is also in a similar vein. So I thought about it and I thought, so how do you feel like our dynamic is? How do you, like the dynamic you and I have? Do you feel like if we were a comedy duo, hypothetically, do you feel like you play the straight guy and I play the goofball?
I almost feel like it's the reverse because sometimes I dumb it up a lot.
That's true.
Like I feel like
and I agree, but I feel like you dumb it up to play the straight guy.
Yeah, I feel like it's kind of like we flip it back and we flip the script back and forth quite a bit.
No, that's true. So I thought about it and I was like, well, what do I need to, because obviously if something terrible would happen, I have to think about what I need in order to make things better. So, Shawn, I decided to go with a list of people who are infinitely more interesting than I am, so that way I can just play sidekick to them.
Okay. So, because, I mean, you look at our dynamic, I wouldn't say either one of us is the sidekick.
No, I agree. So, and I guess that's what I'm saying, that I would have to... The only other type of people that I could do a show with is a show where I'm kind of a bit more. I'm like I would be like the Andy Richter to somebody's Conan O'Brien.
Yeah, I get it. Yeah, that makes sense.
So for my first pick, I'm going with somebody that has been on the show before. Also, very infinitely interesting. I feel like they could easily maintain a recording schedule. Plus, I get hopefully I get all sorts of like sweet equipment to use and everything. Shawn, for my first round pick, I get to go with Ming Chen.
Ooh, that's a good one. I didn't have him on my list. I probably should have.
Really? You didn't have him on there at all?
No, I didn't even. I think because like he's one of those guys that's like really busy, and maybe there's a little bit of an intimidation where it's like, oh, I want to do a podcast with Ming. He's like, well, what are we gonna record using? Like, mics? He's like, yeah, but what kind of mics? Good ones. Like, to me, it reminds me of like Kevin Smith's story when he was shooting a Cop Out, and like he like, oh, get the lens. It's like this. And Bruce Willis is like, you mean when he called it whatever it was? He's like, yeah, sure. I mean, I just tell my camera guy who's been with me forever like this, and he gets it. He's like, but you don't know like what it's called? He's like, no, I just do this with my hands, and he gets it.
Are you calling Ming the Bruce Willis of podcasting?
Well, to be fair,
you said that.
Well, to be fair, like when you talk about like that time in Bruce Willis's life, like it sounds like it was more due to like some health issues that he wasn't talking about. True. So I'm saying it's more as like maybe Ming would come off as more professional than I am, even though we say we are professional. I mean, Ming is a legit professional.
That's true, but I feel like the professionalism is what would help maintain a schedule and whatnot.
Oh, could you imagine recording all your shows at the Shared Universe studio too?
Yeah, that'd be nice.
And he'd probably have to bring you along.
Sweet.
Yeah, have to bring you along to all the cons so you can keep up the weekly release. He does have
my liver would die, but I'd be fine with it.
That's true. He has a really good wide variety of knowledge on things too. Like he's very much into comics and movies, but I mean, like when we did the show with him in Red Bank, we talked more about just like his history, and that was super interesting.
What he knows about like coding and
you could dive into a lot of that
websites
stuff.
Websites and whatnot.
And shoot, I mean, just the stories you could probably like. You could find somebody that he's been in a con to and just do whole episodes around that. Like, you know, like, oh, here's my.
I mean, that's what I'm saying. Like, I feel like, you know, somebody infinitely more interesting than I am. And then I could just kind of like play off of, I could just play off of that more so than it would definitely be, I don't want to say an unequal partnership, but it would definitely be more kind of playing off of him rather than kind of like the dynamic you and I have. It would definitely be a different dynamic. I mean, that's obvious, but
yeah, I like that. I wonder, he's dived into a few stories, but it'd be interesting. Like if you do kind of like what we do, where you find like this really weird like story from history and like try to improv with him around it or get his thoughts on it. Like it'd be interesting to see kind of what he would do with something like that.
Oh, I agree. I think that'd be cool.
All right. For my second round pick, this was somebody who was on a podcast and I listened to it, and just the history he's been through was really, really interesting. So I don't know in terms of like once you get past just like story talks and like his thoughts on like where his career is, if it would kind of be like a little more difficult to keep going. But I feel like just getting his thoughts on cinema and video games and just, you know, probably even just like, I bet he'd be fun to improv stuff around just because of where he got in life. Richard, I would go with, for my second round pick, Freddy Krueger himself, Robert Englund.
Okay.
He was on a podcast. It's Inside of Me with Michael Rosenbaum. I've been listening to his stuff a little bit, and his style is it's interview style podcast. But he had Robert Englund on, and just the stories that he talked about, like he was just this blonde surfer boy, you know, was doing different movies, and just like the history that he went through, and even talking about just like random facts and stuff. Not quite improving around it, but very much kind of like making some jokes that we do. I felt like he'd be a fun guy to talk about. And like you do like movie reviews with him would be fun. Getting his thoughts on like modern cinema and like horror movies and what it was like to, you know, work in like, you know, whatever, Hollywood, 1970, 1980.
At one point he was Mark Hamill's roommate.
Yeah, he talked about that in that episode, and it was really, really interesting. You could almost do like what there's a couple of wrestling shows like, What Happened When, where, they have a famous wrestler and they go back and talk about like wrestling from the past. Like, I think you get a lot of fun content with that. He's a great actor. Like, I think he's an underrated actor. But like kind of getting him to improv around things might be kind of fun. And plus it's Freddy Krueger. So like every Halloween for Broloween is going to be amazing.
That's true.
So
That's true.
For my second round pick, I'm going to go with Freddy Krueger himself, Robert Englund.
Dude, okay, so it's funny. I mentioned that he was Mark Hamill's roommate, and on my list, and I feel like I need to make it. I'll just go ahead and make this pick now. For my next pick, I had Mark Hamill.
I like it. That's a good one.
Because, okay, so obviously, he's fucking Luke Skywalker, which is, that's great. However, I think the thing that people don't know about Mark is that he is definitely very much a fan. He's a fan of film. He's a fan of collectibles. He's a fan of, comics and pop culture in general. Everybody, it's always like, well, he does voice acting and stuff like that. And yeah, he's Luke Skywalker. And like, based off that alone, you would think that like he's got his geek bona fides, right? But I think he had that street cred, I feel, before he even started acting. He was definitely a fan and still is a fan. He has an encyclopedic knowledge of things when it comes to like pop culture and cinema and comics. And it's not just stuff he's gleaned over just, being around it for years. Like he's genuine. Now I would say that he knows it because he's interested in it.
Mm-hmm.
And so
do you think with him, you guys would kind of be stuck more on like pop culture, or do you think you could dive into other things?
I think, pop culture would be great, but also, his like historical things from cinema would be cool. Like old TV shows would be interesting. I feel like with him, you could possibly get some decent guests that could sit and chit chat.
Yeah, if you're going with your kind of like your Andy Rickman type thing, like that would be the ideals. Like, hey, we've got, Han Solo here. He's like, my name is Harrison Horn. Whatever, Han Solo with the Jedi Master Mark Hamill. All right, guys, talk. I just want to listen.
I'm going to stay right here. I'm going to be a window on this Skype call, and that's it.
Hey, do you guys remember when you're on the Millennium Falcon? That was pretty cool.
That was amazing. Let's just sit and watch the movie right now, all three of us.
It's just another 300 episodes of the first 3 episodes of Star Wars.
But no, I think that everybody, I think that the general populace assumes that Mark is a very one-dimensional character in terms of like, oh, well, he was Luke Skywalker and that's it. And people that are even in kind of the sphere of, geek culture, for lack of a better word, are just like, oh, he did the voice of the Joker and he was Luke Skywalker and that's it. Like, no, he knows his shit. And he's definitely a fan of all the things that you're a fan of. The reason that he does the things that he does is because he's genuinely like, he's the voice of the Joker because he likes that, like he genuinely likes that character.
Mm-hmm. Well, like there's a Netflix show called The Last Kids on Earth, and he does a voice on there. You think that's just a Netflix show, like that's for kids, like, and he doesn't like not a lot of people like, oh my God, I got to go watch this because it's Mark Hamill. It's like, oh shit, that's Mark Hamill voicing something in this.
Yeah. There was a very short-lived show on, I don't even know. It was on some like it was like some web series that has, gone the way of the dodo, but it was him and he was traveling and talking to different collectors that collected, old toys and old vintage, shit like vintage lunchboxes and stuff like that. And he could just rattle off stuff about it, just stuff that he knew off the top of his head.
Mm-hmm.
Old stuff, old film props, and not just Star Wars.
I feel like that would be,
yeah.
With him, it'd be a lot of work on like your part to like try to figure out like what to pull out of him, because you couldn't just show up and be like, "Hey, talk about stuff." But like if you did like the roadshow thing, or
because it's a lot. Because it's definitely like, you definitely have to narrow the scope.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I like it.
So yeah, there's my pick.
All right, Richard, for my third round pick, this is, when I think about who I'd want to replace you, like I need somebody that's, podcaster is great, improver is great, likes the supernatural, likes wrestling, likes sports, likes music, like checks all these boxes, right? And I found, he's got like so many names too, Richard. He's Le Champion. He's the influencer. He's the Lionheart. It is the one, Richard, Chris Jericho.
So I watched him when he was a wrestler for WCW, and he was definitely like a good guy then. Then he went to WWE and played a little bit of a heel. I wouldn't really call him a full-on heel, but a little bit of a heel. And then heard a couple podcast episodes that he did with Kevin, and that's about it. I never thought the guy wasn't like articulate. I mean, he definitely seemed like, he had a good head on his shoulders, but why? So what would the premise and tenor of that show be?
Well, I think you can, like, we could get stories like we do now in improv around him, because he is a very good improver. In a couple movies he's in, he's talked about like the pieces that he's just improved. Like he likes music, so you could talk about different music things. Loves horror movies, so you could definitely talk about a bunch of different horror movies, and he likes movies in general. But the thing is, like when you hear him podcasting, a lot of celebrities, when you hear them podcast, they very much feel like they've got like a celebrity switch flipped on, and they're talking through that filter. Whereas with Chris Jericho's podcast, it doesn't feel like I'm listening to Chris Jericho, the wrestler. It sounds more like I'm listening to Chris Jericho, just the podcaster. So,
yeah.
I would say like the conversations we have are very much like, if you walked by our table at Big River Comic Con, you would have heard us doing these exact conversations, just not with a mic.
That's true.
And I feel like you get that with Chris Jericho a little bit. Like it feels, there's a few times when you get some guests, like he kind of feels like he's kind of yucking it up a little bit. But if it was a weekly thing, just me and him, I feel like you'd get into like a routine like we do. And he's a super funny guy. Like he's got some funny stuff. He's great at getting people over. So I think the podcast would get over really well. But just the amount of conversations you could have on stuff like that. And he's consistent. He is very much putting out an episode every week, or at least if he misses a week, there's something coming out pretty soon after. And you get Fozzy, so you got opening credit music for free. So yeah, my third round pick would be Chris Jericho from AEW, WWE, WCW, all of it.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I can't really fault much of any of that. I mean, that all sounds good.
Yeah,
Stamp of approval.
Yep. He already does a lot of stuff online too with like guests and stuff. So like Zooming wouldn't be a big deal. Yeah, I like if you get a chance, like him and Kevin did like a Exorcism or Exorcist like 3 review. Or no, it was Damien 3. It was one of those like devil movies around Halloween.
Oh, okay. Okay.
And it was really, really good. Just really entertaining.
I must have missed that one.
Because that was the episode where I was like, man, like he'd be fun to do a podcast with, because they were very much kind of doing like the Kevin Smith like improv makeup stories around the story that you're talking about, and it was just really, really good. And I was like, man, like I want to do a show with both those guys. But yeah,
that's true.
My third round pick is Chris Jericho.
All right, so for my third round pick, I'm going with somebody that is, again, 1,000% more interesting than I am. More in the sense that I feel like everything this guy does is instant gold. And so I guess I would love to see what he would do with just kind of a weekly, maybe not, just kind of a weekly picking of his brain, but also I think it would, make for interesting. I think it would definitely make for interesting content in terms of, maybe this generates ideas on, hey, what would happen if take this thing from the news? Oh, well, what if this happened? And then, Shawn, for my third round pick, I'm going with somebody. I like I said, I can't find a single fault in this guy's work. It's Taika Waititi. Shawn, okay, and for anybody that's like, well, what makes him so funny? What makes him so interesting? Shawn, this is a guy that has managed to play Adolf Hitler in a movie and make it funny and interesting.
That's the rabbit, right? The rabbit one.
Yeah, Jojo Rabbit.
Yeah, I need to sit and watch that whole. We watched it at a game day, and it was that. Oh, because did he write and direct that too?
Yeah.
Like that's one of those movies that perfectly plays on making you laugh, and then the next moment, not necessarily making you feel bad for laughing, but put everything very much in perspective. Like give you like a very serious, like, oh man, like here we are watching this, because what's that called? Where satire, like it does what like satire is supposed to do.
Yes, and like name me any other person that can pull off an Adolf Hitler performance. Can't do it. Mel Brooks, probably the only one that's even close. So just to give you a list of like, because the guy works all the time. That's the other thing. The guy works all the time. He's constantly juggling 3 things at once. And so I feel like, hey, you just want to like, do an hour a week where you just kind of like hang out. I feel like he could easily incorporate that into a schedule. So, okay. So Thor 3, just to put the big credits up there, Thor 3, Thor Ragnarok, he did that, did the voice of Korg on top of it, which instantly became one of the more beloved characters in the MCU. What's up? My name's Korg. I'm made of rocks, as you can see. Directed an episode of the first season of Mandalorian and did the voice for IG-88 throughout that whole first season of Mandalorian.
Have you heard many interviews or like any non acting presence of his, or has it all just been through acting? Have
I seen like interviews with him and stuff like that? Yes. Definitely strikes me as a very interesting person that you can kind of like. I like people that you can kind of see the wheels turning in their head while they're talking and kind of get like before they say something, they get a little smirk. So they're like, I'm about to be amusing. Watch this shit.
Gotcha.
And then they say something. What We Do in the Shadows, fantastic movie and show. Because it's a show on FX.
It's on like season 2 or 3, isn't it?
Yeah. Oh God. Jojo Rabbit, mentioned that. I'm trying to think of like, haven't seen the new Thor, but I mean that's coming up, and he's doing that one. I think he has a Star Wars movie somewhere on that docket.
Oh yeah, that's right.
And then he just did a show on HBO Max called Our Flag is Death, or Our Flag Means Death, which is like a pirate show.
Okay.
And he plays Blackbeard in the show. So he wrote and directed the show and also plays Blackbeard in the show. Fantastic. Definitely seems like a guy that doesn't take himself too seriously.
Yeah, that's always good for a podcast too, because he'd be willing to almost do anything.
Very, very laid back and cool and relaxed, which I am always down with.
All right.
So yeah, that's pick number 3 for me.
So for my 4th round pick, this is another person I heard kind of talking on a podcast that was kind of an open forum. He's been in a couple big shows. Very good musician. I feel like he'd be. I don't know the longevity of this. That's what makes me a little bit nervous of picking him, but I think if you got into a good groove, you could probably get some cool stuff done. So, Richard, for my 4th round pick, and I've heard him on a couple panels, and I think this is the other reason I think he'd be fun, because he feels like he's very quick on his feet. It is the guy who plays Dean from Supernatural, Jensen Ackles.
Oh.
So I heard him on the same podcast, The Inside Me by Michael Rosenbaum, and he just had some like quick kind of like one-line quips like we do. He was a big baseball player back in the day, like in high school, and it's funny because he talked about how he loved to sing, and so he did one of the school plays, and so like it was a very big singing part, and like all the baseball players on his team sat in the front row like prepared to like basically like heckle him. But then when he came out, like he hit all the notes really well. Like afterwards, they're just like, "Yeah, like dude, that was pretty good. Like, yeah, you got a good voice. You want to go have a beer in the parking lot?" I haven't seen him in The Boys as Soldier Boy yet, but I think he's got a pretty good run on that. But yeah, just like in his panels too, like he's very quick on his feet. Like people ask him questions, and he kind of like feels like he's kind of like improving around that, which to me is like a big thing with our show. Like I really enjoy just like the creation of these like little like silly worlds, and I feel like he'd be a lot of fun with that. He's going to be reliable. I mean, he had 13 seasons of a show, so obviously he's going to be there week to week. And he just seems like a really cool dude. Like he seems like he's from Texas. Just kind of seems like somebody that'd be a good bro, to put it in terms of marketing and branding. So my 4th round pick, I'm going to go with Jensen Ackles.
Okay. I can get behind that. Shawn, for my 4th round pick. See, okay, before I go any further, I feel like I should I've noticed that you are it seems like you were trying to keep the current show format in terms of like how it generally goes. And and I've noticed that with my picks, I kind of fundamentally change the format and tenor of the show. And I think that's just because like I can't do what I do with anybody except you. And so if anybody else is here, then it has to be something different.
Yeah, no, I get that.
So that's I guess that's
I'm the only one that can make you pod this way.
I think so. Yeah. I mean, for lack of a better word, yeah, that's about all I can say. Shawn, for my 4th round pick, I'm gonna go with somebody that seems like they have so much more to say than anything that I've seen them say. Because the interviews and little blips that I have seen with him it's usually either the same kind of 2 or 3 stories, or it's people that are fundamentally asking him questions, kind of more recycled questions, and also coming from I don't want to say ignorant place, but just they don't, necessarily understand or have a big knowledge on stuff they're talking about. But I feel like if somebody talked to this guy that was a bit more in like lockstep with the things that he was into and a bit more engaged with the things that he was into, I feel like we could spin tons of yarns together. Shawn, for my next pick, I am going Geralt of Rivia himself. I'm going with Henry Cavill.
Ooh, we talked about that a while back, and yeah, I feel kind of the same way. Like, if it got to a point where you kind of broke that ice and kind of got into that close friendship, like, I bet there is a treasure trove of amazing conversations that could happen.
I feel like there is so much that he like. I feel like he would love to sit down and just like kind of geek out with somebody over like Warhammer 40K or building a PC or playing World of Warcraft or what the fuck ever. But whenever I see him on like a talk show or something like that, like it feels like he wants to say so much more, but he can't because it's not really like the atmosphere isn't really calling for it.
It's kind of like Ryan Reynolds to me in an aspect. Like, he gets like, this is fake. Like, this, me being on this talk show this isn't you actually genuinely curious about what I have to say. It's just, my PR firm putting me here because I got to push something. Like, I don't want to say, like, yeah, Witcher's a great show. I love it. It's fun to do. But, like, I really don't feel like talking about that right now. Like, I'd rather talk about, like, Warhammer, this show I'm watching, or, this thing I'm doing.
He's super into Warhammer 40. He's been super into Warhammer 40K. There's a video. I mean, yes, he knows a lot about The Witcher and, read the books, and obviously he's played through the games like 2 or 3 times. I think he did Witcher 3 on Death March, which, I could not do. That's a rough go playing that game on Death March. Oh my God.
Is that like one hit and you're out?
Nervous. I wouldn't do anything.
Or is that where you die and you have to start over?
Yeah, that's when you die.
Ouch.
Right?
So there's no like last save type thing?
I believe so. I believe that's how it works. Yeah.
He does all that and has time to work out. Think about that.
There's videos of him building his first PC, which, I mean, you could tell, like, I've watched the video of him building his PC, and you could tell like he kind of knows what he's doing, but he's not, he doesn't know like a lot. He knows enough of how to put it together and how, and he it seemed like he seemed genuinely interested in doing it and sharing it. But yeah, like I said, like, Warhammer 40K and just PC gaming in general. I feel like, I mean, it's like I said, I feel like there's so much more he would love to like deep dive and get into, but he just like, I never see him in a setting where he feels like it's cool to do that.
Yeah. Well, again, I feel like that's very much like if you got him like post like acting, like he's done, like maybe he's doing just like bit parts here or there, just like kind of like whatever to keep his SAG card. And he doesn't really care about like, trying to do these big movies like a Ryan Reynolds. When he gets to the point where he's like, I'm just wanting to do fun stuff. You get him on the show and you're just like, just having a ball talking about whatever for a couple hours a week. And like, there's no like, what can they do for me? There's no like, me trying to push a movie. It's just me having a legit fun conversation. And like, yeah, I feel like Henry Cavill is the same, like in that wheelhouse. I'm not sure what his sense of humor is like. Like, I'd be kind of interested to see if there is a good, like deep sense of humor, or if he's kind of always going to be kind of dry and the conversation is going to be more informational than like humorous.
I don't know. That's a good question.
Yeah, I'd be interested. Because like Ryan Reynolds, I feel like if you took like Ryan Reynolds and put him like in your spot or my spot, it's kind of the same show. You've got somebody you're bantering back and forth with. That's kind of quick-witted, and then the conversation leads kind of like just to whatever kind of jokes. But like you look at Henry Cavill, and like I could see like you could be like, oh yeah, that'd be like just like how my friend died with that erotic asphyxiation, and he'd be like, I don't get it. What happened? Your friend died. That's really sad. Why are we talking about that?
So yeah, so that's my pick, Henry Cavill. I feel like, is your next pick Ryan Reynolds?
No, but it probably should have been. I didn't actually have Ryan Reynolds on my list. My next pick, I'd gone through a lot. Like, I'd listened to a bunch of these interviews, and I think that's kind of where I'm like, oh my God, this person's so interesting. So like, I was dropping Ryan Reynolds a lot, right? I've never really seen him in a non like scripted, non like I don't know what you'd call it, like a non like
structured,
yeah, a non-structured environment where I could be like, oh, well, if he was just off the cuff, like, you know, having fun, like that'd be my guy. I've seen one video of his where some like woman is like, hey, can you sign my cast? And he's like, oh yeah, I'm not an asshole. And he goes over and signs it, like he comes from like a distance to sign it. But the person I'm going to pick for my 5th round, it might get a little too. In some of his conversations, I feel like he tries to outthink the room a little bit. And that I feel like maybe a younger version of this might be more fun. Because it's just like anything in Hollywood. I feel like when people kind of get down a path, they kind of become a little too hoity-toity with their stuff. Like they kind of lose the fun in it. But it feels like he still tries to have a little bit of that. The LOB movie pitches, like if you're pitching with this guy, I think that would be the blast. Because I feel like you'd come up with all kinds of crazy oddball stuff. Richard,
all right.
One of the reasons I fell in love with horror movies, because he did a movie called, why am I going to forget it now off the top of my head? Cabin in the Woods. Is it Cabin in the Woods? No, that's Joss Whedon.
That's Joss Whedon. I was like, oh God, are you picking Joss Whedon?
No, not Joss Whedon.
I'm like, Shawn,
No, my pick's Eli Roth. What was his Cabin movie? Cabin Fever. There we go. I don't know.
Cabin Fever.
Yeah, I had it close.
Yeah.
But yeah, Eli Roth.
Fever, Hostel.
Yeah, I heard an interview with him, and he kind of talked about like his childhood and just like very interesting childhood, but very just kind of like talks about all these different things, very kind of willy nilly. But yeah, like coming up with like movie pitches with him, I think would be fun. Again,
for sure.
I don't know how far like if you, I feel like that's what the show would turn into. Like it would be just weekly movie pitches, which again, you know, we kind of do that already to an extent, but if you've got somebody like that can just be like, hey, I found this story on such and such. All right, well, let's create a whole movie around it. So maybe it'd be rebranded to, you know, LOB movie pitch with Eli Roth, and that would be the way you'd go with it.
Oh, there you go. Instead of the whole the one show has built into a series.
Yeah, and like it'd be interesting. Like you know, he can do horror movies. But like if you start trying to make him branch out and be like, all right, let's do a rom-com, and you kind of come up with a whole plot point and kind of like structure it and try to get like a movie created in an hour type thing. Very like solid conversation. Like I heard 2 or 3 different interviews with him with the same person, and each one seemed like he kept adding to a different topic. Like it wasn't the same episode both times, and I really kind of dug that. I felt like he could kind of had some legs on how we could take conversations. But yeah, my 5th round pick, kind of the newish king of horror. He's kind of slowed down a little bit, but the one Eli Roth.
I like it. All right. Pick number 5 for me. So this pick would obviously fundamentally change the show into something completely different, because I think that this could be either informative on different aspects of a game, or more than likely, I think it would probably just evolve into kind of a let's play thing, and maybe, you know, like just invite, you know, either my friends or, you know, maybe his friends, and then just do like weekly one shot adventures.
Ooh, there we
go.
And
it would be weekly one-shot adventures with a master storyteller. You were talking about LOB movie pitches. This would be D&D adventure pitches. Shawn, my next pick is the DM of Critical Role, Matthew Mercer.
So you think you guys would kind of come up with like campaign settings and like one-shot like adventures? You kind of plot those out?
Yeah. You just do that like week to week and just be like, you know, okay, so they start here and they go here and do this thing, and then this thing happens, but behind the scenes, this and this and this is going on, and you just, you know,
there aren't more of those. Like I feel like that should be like our like a show we do, like DM hour with the bros or something like that.
That's actually kind of a good idea.
Yeah,
just come up with like a one-shot adventure.
Yeah. kind of try to figure out like, okay,
just brainstorm it and throw it out there.
Maybe we come up with a starting and an ending before the episode, and we try to figure out how to get there, and maybe it evolves as we kind of go through it. You should write that down. That's a good idea.
Or not even that, just like write like, you know, monsters in like a hat and then just pull one out and be like, okay, you got to use this.
Yeah, that'd be interesting. Yeah, I think because I mean, it's just another form of storytelling. It's like, okay, but let's put it in
I feel like a lot of it would be like us flipping through books, which probably don't work well in an audio format.
True. I need to get the
It'd be like us flipping through and reading books.
I haven't listened to too much Critical Role. Is it pretty good?
It's very good. It's very good. It's definitely okay, so I would say it does not play like a typical D&D session, and rightfully so, because of the format it's presented in. You know, it's live streamed, and so it's presented more in a format where it's encouraged for the characters to role play and interact with each other on top of going through an adventure.
Do they do the
so there's
dice?
Definitely a lot of character on character role playing interaction.
Do they actually do the dice rolls on mic, or do they do those off mic?
No, they do. I mean, like I said, the whole thing's live streamed. So
I gotcha.
I mean,
yeah, because there was a show.
Die rolls all happen.
I don't remember what it was called, but there was a show that they did. I think it was a Starfinder campaign, but they took out all the dice rolls, so it was just the role playing and kind of like the interactions of what was happening, and it was really good because it was more of like an audio drama than an actual like watching a real play. Yeah, it was pretty cool.
I could see it, especially if you're doing like an audio only format. I feel like that would be good. No, with Critical Role, it's all out there, and roles get made, and then they need to be bad roles get played out into all sorts of things. They're on campaign 3 now, so
gotcha. It's all homebrew stuff too, right? Like it's all created just for their world.
Correct. Even some of the classes are homebrewed.
Oh, cool. Do they play
not just the campaign setting?
Do they say what campaign setting they're actually playing off of, or is that kind of like left out for copyright reasons?
Well, the campaign settings now getting books published, getting actual, like Wizards of the Coast is publishing books on that campaign setting. So I guess technically now it's canon.
And so it's in D&D. I didn't know if they just kind of played it as like high fantasy. And it's like, well, it could be D&D, it could be Pathfinder. It's just it's left kind of vague.
It's definitely its own thing, because like I said, now there's books and stuff on it on just that campaign setting now. So
yeah, that's like the nerd dream. Like you make a podcast that's successful, and then like the company you love playing the campaign of is like, hey, why don't we publish these? Instead of us, like we just get cease and desist.
Hey, you guys want to do an animated television show, based on the campaign that you went through? Yeah, that's the dream.
That is the dream. I like it. I like that. I'm gonna write that down. Those are our idea. That'd be fun.
That'd be cool. I'd be down to give that a go.
All right, for my 6th round pick, Richard, this is somebody that I have podcasted with for over 100 episodes already, so I know that.
John, I'm dead.
Oh yeah,
you can't pick me.
Well, I'm gonna reanimate your corpse. No, this is
Richard's dead body.
This is a lady, Richard. So we'd probably have to change the name. Maybe we just call it, what we used to call our podcast, Richard. Format would change back to kind of what we did back in the day, but I think it just kind of would. This would be like, would help console me because it'd be a comfort food. Like I know this podcast worked. It was, something that got me through stuff. So it definitely get me through this thing with, losing my best friend in the whole wide world. Richard, I'm going to have to team back up with she's not my big sis, but she feels like my big sis. I'm gonna have to pick Rima Joe.
Great. Now I got to have somebody start tasting my food.
Yep. So we did Strange Indeed for like 120 some episodes. She's still going strong with it right now with Paige. It's an amazing show still. I get to jump on it every now and then. But
speaking of which, we haven't talked about this at all. Have you seen Have you seen the new trailer
for Stranger Things
for the next season?
Yeah, it looks good. Like they're going like super scary horror movie. I like it.
Yeah,
I like it a lot.
I am for it. I'm here for it.
Robert Englund's in there too, I guess. I didn't see him in the trailer, but I heard he's in it. Yeah.
Oh my God, it's all coming around.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, I mean, it's. I feel like if something did happen, the only person, maybe my 7th round pick, but like I feel like I could probably do this with John, but at some point, like I think I would like be too heartbroken to keep going in this format. Like it'd be kind of like everything would be like, oh well, Richard would have said this, or Richard would have probably laughed at that joke. So by like kind of going in a complete different direction where it's more of just TV show reviews, and we kind of already had our own format, I feel like Rima would be the best person to do that with. And she was always really like consistent with being like, I was the one who had trouble getting consistent time because I just had the kid at that point. But jumping on that full time is my only show. We could probably get a bunch of stuff done. So my 6th round pick, I'm going to go with Rima Joe.
Okay. All right.
Hey, did you get that package? She said she was mailing you some like chocolates or something.
No, I immediately threw it in the garbage and then put the garbage outside so it didn't explode.
Oh, okay.
Ha ha.
Did you check your brakes?
Trying to get me. Oh, shit. I have to now. Shawn, for my 6th round pick, this is somebody who actually was probably one of the first podcasts I listened to. And so seems like a super funny dude. I would love to. I think that this would probably, in terms of what the show would be like, I think this is probably this would probably be a show that would be a lot closer to the format we have than with any other person that I've mentioned so far. Shawn, this, like I said, one of the first podcasts I listened to. So, I mean, you want to talk about consistency. This is the person that taught me a lesson about consistency in podcasting. He was the former host of the Nerdist podcast and now hosts a podcast called ID10T. It's Chris Hardwick.
Huh. I know he's gone through some stuff that seems to got like cleared up.
Yeah.
In terms of like the Attack of the Show like stuff, Chris Hardwick was always kind of he reminds me of a guy I went to high school with that we didn't get along. And so there was always that reminder. Like you just remind me of that dude, so it was like a really bad taste in my mouth.
Oh, I gotcha. See, that's funny because I think, like I said, I think that if there's anybody that could have a similar, somewhat kind of like, I'm going to say this, and then you'll probably say something funny, and then I'll say something, and I feel like if anybody I could have that banter with, it would probably be him.
And I haven't listened to his newer stuff, so since he's kind of come down from the Nerdist stuff, like it might be a more like real Chris Hardwick. Because I feel like at Nerdist's peak, he very much had that like, the Walking Dead host like feel to him.
Oh yeah, he had Talking Dead. He had he was like I think he was co-hosting like 2 or 3 shows on top of releasing a bi-weekly podcast.
Yeah, so I probably should go back and listen because I bet like you might get a more like like unstructured is kind of the key word that I think of, like an unstructured Chris Hardwick. For sure. Yeah, a lot of the ID10T episodes are, I mean, they're pretty good. I mean, it's still definitely the same kind of format where, like brings on a guest, interviews a guest and so on. But yeah, I've always been super happy about the type of guests that he seems to curate for his show. Yeah, I'll have to check those out and see. Kind of give him another round. I think at that point when I was listening, Let's say I think about the time
I was just gonna say that's my 6th round pick.
Well, my 7th round Richard money shot pick. So this would be a close second to John. I think that I could like podcast wise, John. I think he's got all the stuff that kind of would check off that he's done this stuff before. But outside of like podcasting, this is the one person I feel like whenever I've been with, like I laugh almost as hard as like when we were together. Like we just have a great like chemistry. We just, can just hang out for hours and it doesn't feel like the time's there. Over the last 2 years, it's kind of gotten shorter or it's been non-existent because of all the COVID stuff. So him and we used to go to like concerts like every other week. And, it's somebody that's known me since birth. It's somebody who, I would consider like, if you had to say like, you're my best friend, Richard, but like this is somebody who I would call like a very, very close second to that. And it's my cousin Josh.
Oh,
so Josh is somebody that when I moved to where I am now, we used to have a bunch of rock shows, and we kind of like just would go to rock concerts all together all the time, and really kind of built this repertoire. It's kind of similar to ours, where we just kind of banter off each other and kind of like try to one up each other and try to make each other laugh. Love him with all my heart. It's just somebody that's been there for me, somebody that like I said, I grew up with. We actually are going to get to go to concerts again here in a month, which I'm very excited for, because it's been way too long since we've got to go to a show together. But yeah, nice. I think he's never done a podcast before. I think he's been listening to a bunch of them, because I think I told you this, like, since we haven't seen each other all that much. He told me he went back and started listening to a bunch of our shows because he had missed the sound of my voice.
Aww.
Yeah.
That's so nice.
Yeah, because you always worry sometimes when you do stuff with people. You're like, well, is this like, are we just doing this because like there's a common like, enjoyment, or like do we actually enjoy each other's company? Kind of like this. It's like we talk offline all the time, and camera, no camera, mic, no mic, it doesn't matter. Like that's just the secondary thing we do. But I feel like that'd be kind of the same thing with him, as he would just be able to fit in and kind of just it'd be good to kind of have